Hey everybody, welcome back to Integrative Psychonautics. My name is Dave, and in today's video we're going to be talking about starting to introduce you to the relationship between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, how to understand it, how to work with it more, and just starting to get you more familiar with identifying and working with this relationship. But really quick, before we do, I want to just give you a little context on myself in case you're new to me or to the channel here. I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm a coach. I work in the psychedelic space with people, mostly doing stuff like integration work, doing prep work with people before, if they're going to go travel and do sessions, they're about to do a therapeutic session on their own, they want a little support. I help people with just personal transformation in general, healing, resolving issues, letting go of stuff, stepping into what they want to step into, this kind of a thing. So if any of that is kind of your area of interest, then you're certainly in the right place here, and welcome aboard for the conversation. Just want to let you know kind of a little bit about my background. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the topic here. So as I said in the introduction, this is a huge topic. This is actually probably going to be one of those topics that I talk about over and over and over to start to try to convey a more complete understanding to you. But this came up in one of my coaching calls recently with my coaching group, which, by the way, if you're interested in joining, you can click on the link down below and go add yourself and become a member of the group. And it kind of popped up in conversation. It wasn't something that I was presenting on, but it kind of came up in a question, and we kind of talked about it, and everyone seemed to be really gratified to be learning about how the conscious and the unconscious mind works. So I thought, this might be a cue to start to talk about this more, just generally here on YouTube, and start to convey more about what I understand about it and what I've learned about it through my education in NLP and hypnotherapy and hypnosis and kind of different ways of understanding this relationship, because it's, from my perspective as a hypnotherapist, if we're working with psychedelics, understanding how the unconscious mind communicates to us and communicates with us and processes information is really central to this whole thing. If you don't know what's happening and how to work with and how to relate with your unconscious mind, it's going to make the whole thing a lot more confusing, challenging, overwhelming. And conversely, once you start to understand and get your rhythm with connecting with your own unconscious and how it's communicating with you already, it really can deepen and open up this whole process of healing and self-exploration and personal growth and all that good stuff. So I want to just kind of share a few basic takes that are generally understood. And I want to be clear, as a hypnotherapist here, I'm trained in a certain kind of set of schools of hypnotherapy. And for those of you who aren't familiar with hypnosis at all, just like many other types of personal development or therapy or whatever, there are many different schools of hypnosis out there within the field of hypnotherapy. And they don't all agree, obviously. They have different schools of thought and different approaches and things that they notice do work or don't work. And so, I don't want to pretend like my perspective and what I've learned is complete by any sense, but I think it's a useful starting point. This is stuff that, me having done a lot of psychedelics when I was younger, recreationally and kind of for self-exploration purposes, did not have any of this understanding. And personally now, once I'd learned about the unconscious mind and how it works, it made so many things make sense. And it really would have been something that would have been super helpful back in the day. So I wanted to just start to empower you guys to understand a bit about it. By the way, pardon Emma back there. She's snoring a little bit, so she might make some grunts and groans, but she's just being a cozy dog on a cozy day. So, okay. So let's talk a little bit about a few key points when it comes to understanding the unconscious mind, particularly with psychedelics, or at least this first point will be about psychedelics, but also just in general. So one thing to understand is that a lot of times the unconscious mind does not communicate linearly and in terms of like understanding time. To the unconscious mind, everything is in the moment. It's all now. It's all here. It's all in the present, which if you get really tuned in, really tapped in on psychedelics, that's something that tends to arise in us. We have these experiences of everything is in the moment. Everything is here now. I'm only feeling the present moment. The unconscious mind tends to communicate symbolically, non-linearly. So that would be like intuitively, symbolically, impressionistically, through things like shapes, colors, patterns, symbols, repetition, impressions, emotions, felt senses, somatic body sensations. These are all common ways that the unconscious mind, again, from a hypnotherapy perspective, communicates. And so one of the things that happens a lot for people on psychedelics is you're kind of going about your thing and you're maybe having a great time. Maybe it's kind of all over the place, but it's beautiful and it's profound and it's magical. And then we kind of get hit with this sudden feeling, a sudden wave of feeling or emotion, and it kind of seems to arise out of nowhere. And, especially if we're trying to do healing work, we've taken psychedelics to try to learn about what our issue is or why we have the issue or what have you. A lot of times what happens is we'll get this sudden arising of an emotion or a body sensation or like kind of a felt sense of maybe panic or fear or something like this, right? Overwhelm, sadness, but it might be kind of non-specific. Now, one thing that I was telling people in the group that I think it's really useful for everyone to know is that a lot of times we will get the unconscious mind is actually trying to present to us the wound, the issue, the problem in this very direct felt sense way without any sort of linguistic verbal, because the unconscious mind doesn't do language. So that's the conscious mind, right? The unconscious mind doesn't do temporal, conceptual, clear, rational understanding. It does felt sensory understanding, right? So it'll give us this felt sensory experience that is the problem. The unconscious mind will be like, here's the problem, here's the pattern, here's the memory, here's the fear, here's the issue, but it won't give you the context. Now, this happens all the time where you don't get, oh, this happened when I was 6 and it was from this and because this person said that to me. You won't get a specific memory. You won't get a specific narrative. Because again, the narrative is much more in the conscious mind. It's much more in the prefrontal cortex, in the linguistic mind, right? But if you're going deeper down into the nervous system, into the mammalian and the reptilian brain, which is much more where the unconscious exists, you don't get the narrative. You just get the experience. And so a lot of times we get kind of like shocked or overwhelmed or like, what the hell was that? Like, what do I do with that? Geez, I just had this experience of just suddenly being flooded with terror or, fear or deep insecurity or, all this grief about blah, 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 blah. And we may get a little bit of a sense of what it is, but a lot of times we just kind of get the feeling. This is the unconscious mind trying to present to you what needs healing. And again, it doesn't give it to you in context. It's just kind of expecting you to know or to figure out or to put that into connection. Now, it can be helpful to start to remember or connect the dots sometimes. But sometimes really all you need to do, at least from my perspective as a hypnotherapist, is start to work with the patterns of body sensation, senses of location in the memory or the feeling, the direct experience of the emotion itself, and not worry so much about what the narrative is, what exactly it's trying to point you towards, this kind of a thing. And don't worry about getting it rationally and cognitively. Just work it as a set of senses and feelings and experiences and somatic patterns, basically. What I found a lot of times is that when I'm working with people, they get the rational cognitive understanding after something has moved or started to heal or started to change at the unconscious level. And so it's often so much easier just to work with what gets presented and start to either log that information and then go do therapeutic work on it after you come down, or if you're doing a psychedelic therapy session, just work directly with the sensations and with the experiences, not worrying about what it means or what the experience was or what the memory that's connected to it needs to be, or the interpretation about yourself, or, whatever. Don't try to fit it into a conceptual framework. Just let it be senses and experiences. And when you do that and the thing clicks, all of a sudden you get these aha moments after the change, or as it's changing, right? So the thing we want to focus on more is just working directly with it. So I really want you to know that. I want you to know that a lot of times you'll get these communications directly from the body as felt experiences, impressions, maybe little vague intuitions of memory, but you're not going to get a lot of context or clarity or direct memory. It's kind of this flawed understanding, a little bit of how memory works and a little bit about how psychedelics work too. Some people approach psychedelics, especially MDMA, with this kind of impression that it's like, oh, when I, take it, it's going to show me everything I need to know and remember. It's going to be verbatim, like a video recording. And then once I know, I'll be healed. And this whole idea that it's just about bringing things to the conscious mind and that's the healing, generally, in my experience, isn't the case. I think there are times where that can kind of happen, but that can also bring a whole other set of problems with it too. So, take it for what you will, let's say. I wanted to kind of just tell you a couple other things about the unconscious mind really quick. So like I said, it's symbolic, it's intuitive, it's felt senses. So again, you might get symbols, a symbol of a problem or a symbol of a resource. You might get literally like a shape or a pattern, or you might get a character that symbolizes a part of you that maybe you're not connected with, or you might get an entity that is symbolic of a pattern in your life, right? Or you might get some sort of memory of a figure in your life that is symbolic of, either the wound or the healing. So it'll do this a lot. It'll give you these kind of symbolic, intuitive impressions. You might be holding tension in a certain part of your body that's connected to a traumatic memory, and you might see that, symbolically as like a dark spot if you do a body scan when you're high in a psychedelic. You might, you might get some sort of thing that you hear, like an idea or a phrase or a download, if you will, and you'll be like, and it'll be like a phrase, but it won't make cognitive, rational sense. You'll be like, I don't know what this means, but it feels important. That'd be another example of an unconscious communication. So you get these kind of strange, symbolic, and this is why, dream work and Carl Jung's work kind of all overlap a lot with unconscious work and, with psychedelic work. There are a few other things to know about the unconscious mind. So again, it's atemporal, it's not linear, it's not necessarily rational or logical, although it is highly intelligent. And from a hypnosis perspective, we would say that it's capable of processing much more information than the conscious mind, and that it is much more powerful in general. This is why, we get these urges to take action on habits, even though maybe logically we've decided I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to eat the hot chocolate every night before bed. I'm not going to eat the hot, and then next thing you know, you're eating a hot chocolate before bed. Why? Because your unconscious mind is patterned to desire that and go after that. No matter how much willpower and conscious choice you can, apply, it's going to feel weaker than the robust drives of the rest of your system at the unconscious level. So the unconscious is much more powerful than the conscious mind. In NLP and hypnosis trainings, I don't know if this is true or not. I need to look at the science of it more. There's talk about old studies from, I guess, the 50s, maybe the 60s, where they say something like the conscious mind can hold somewhere between 5 to 9 pieces of information in our awareness in any given moment. So that's why phone numbers, at least in the US, are, what are they, 7 digits long or 10 digits long? It's because it sits right in that 5 to 9 pieces of information in a given moment. They say, by contrast, that the unconscious mind can process I don't know whether it's hundreds of thousands or millions or hundreds of millions of pieces of information in a given moment. Another way to think about this is kind of like computing, where there are two types of processing. There's linear processing, where it's sequential, where it's like A to B to C to D to E, and you have to go through each thing to get to the next thing, right? And then there's parallel processing, where all of those are happening simultaneously as paths of processing information at the same time. The unconscious mind is a parallel processor. It can process multiple pieces, dimensions, and aspects of information, where the conscious mind is a linear processor. It is serial. It can only do task A to the next task, to the next task, to the next task. So this is why a lot of times people have this experience with the unconscious mind where, we might be thinking about something else, right? You might be in the shower, planning your day, for example. It's a common one that I experience, and have this aha moment where all of a sudden your unconscious mind like processes some other thing that has nothing to do with your day. And it like, boom, you get this like big epiphany, right? Often the unconscious mind works this way when we put less pressure on it to deliver something into the conscious mind linearly, and we're softer and more relaxed about it. We let it parallel process in its right time. Suddenly, when it's the appropriate moment, it will bring whatever we need to our conscious attention, and it'll arise as an epiphany, as an understanding, as an aha. The unconscious reaches deep into our memory. I think the unconscious, I do think that, you've probably heard that the unconscious remembers everything we've ever experienced and records it. I don't know if that's literally true, but I do think there's like a much deeper held set of memories in the unconscious that we generally don't know are there, that it can bust out when it needs to. The unconscious also perceives through repetition and patterns. So what we might not be able to notice because it's in a narrow span of time, it doesn't make sense. The unconscious mind will see in larger spans of time and see bigger patterns and put those together as well. The unconscious is also, again, intuitive, creative. So if you're getting intuitive hunches or kind of impulses to do something new or different or try something out or call this person or text that person or what have you, that can be a communication from the unconscious mind as well. In general, as you're working with yourself and you're healing, you really want to start to understand the limitations of your conscious mind. And understand that in order to really have the kind of transformative experience you want, you're going to have to embrace the ambiguity that comes with experiencing the unconscious mind. The, sometimes literal communications, sometimes highly kind of symbolic communications, intuitive communications, the little nudges of guidance, the ways of just sending you feelings as a direct experience of something to understand. It's also said that the unconscious mind is much more childlike. So it's much more of the childlike aspect of us, where there's a certain innocence and a certain obedience and kind of naivete to it, where the unconscious mind can believe false things to be true and take it really literally and seriously and react to it. The unconscious mind can, really want that sense of connection that sometimes as adults we've kind of like conditioned ourselves out of paying attention to. The unconscious mind, there's definitely kind of a childlike aspect to it. So as you're working with it, you want to start to learn how to listen to these felt senses, intuitive senses, these childlike aspects of yourself. Sometimes the unconscious mind communicates in parts, like a symbolic, like age or aspect of yourself, or a certain side of your character, or maybe one that's really doubtful and skeptical, or maybe one that's really like sweet and naive and, gullible, these kinds of things. That's all in the unconscious. And so I want to just encourage you to note that stuff and start to take it in and entertain it, not necessarily as being literally true or always right, but as communications, as symbolic communications that you're bringing into your conscious mind. And as a conscious thinker, to tune into these almost like a loving parent or older sibling, where you're listening, you're paying attention, you're working with, you're not squashing the child's imagination or intuitive way of communicating. You're working with it, you're listening to it, you're discerning what it's trying to send you or show you as felt senses and impressions and intuitions and patterns. Because if you take it, seriously, and you give it the curiosity and the love and the respect that it deserves as part of you, it knows, it's powerful. It can lead you to healing so much faster than trying to cognitively, rationally figure out what the problem is or why the problem's there or what's going on. I guess the last thing I'll say about this, and then we'll wrap the video because I'm kind of talking more than I expected to. As a hypnotherapist, I will say that, from an outside observer point of view, my job is to really pay attention to your unconscious moments and expressions and things your system is doing, micro communications, whether it's body language stuff or little twists of phrase, little things we might repeat that we're not really tracking in ourselves. It's kind of my job as a hypnotherapist to notice that about you and notice what's being communicated through that. Because a lot of times the unconscious mind is trying to give signals of, hey, this is what needs healing. Hey, this is where the problem is. This is the thing. But it's just that the conscious mind is so good at filtering out. That's the other thing here. The conscious mind is good at blocking out the unconscious. The unconscious is much more powerful, but in their relationship, the conscious mind is dominant. So I know that seems a little weird, right? It's dominant, but less powerful. But that's really how it is. The unconscious is like this massive force, but it's easily shut out by the thinking, cognitive, conscious, rational mind. For some of you, the easiest way to get there is going to be psychedelics. For others of you, there are other ways to kind of soften the conscious mind, which is one way of thinking about trance. There are many ways to think about trance from a hypnosis point of view, but one would be that we're softening the conscious mind enough to get it a little out of the way so that we can communicate a little more directly with the unconscious. Meditation's great for that. Doing, somatic work, exercising, feeling, getting embodied, getting intuitive are all good ways to get at that. And, in general, I want you to just start thinking in this way. What is my unconscious telling me about this problem? How is it telling me? Am I listening? Am I giving it room to tell me in the way that it wants to tell me and allowing myself to kind of just feel and sift and stew through this, because a lot of times once you kind of make that space and you allow the pieces of information to kind of be there and you don't try to force them into an understanding, they'll kind of start to click on their own, right? So that would be one thing I would encourage you to do. Obviously, when we take psychedelics, you're looking at an amplification of your unconscious mind's creative power. So we get felt senses, intuitions, impressions, different aspects of our being communicating, sometimes truths, sometimes kind of abstractions or just emotional truths. You get obviously that whole sense of world creating inside your imagination that becomes so vivid, through closed eyes visuals or body sensations, somatic sensations. You feel like you're floating, you feel like you're melting, all these different things, right? That the creative capacity of the unconscious mind delivers you when it's heightened, when it's amplified, right? So it goes from being kind of like something that's out of sight and out of our awareness to something that becomes much more in our awareness on a psychedelic session. I guess that's all I'm going to say for now about this. If you have more questions, please leave a comment or question down below. If you'd like to explore this kind of work more, you want some coaching, whether that's preparation work, integration work, both. You want help around a set of sessions. You want to do some transformative work, and you realize that there's an unconscious piece there that you don't know how to work with. You are absolutely invited to get in touch with me. My email will be down below. And whoever you are watching this, I just want to say thank you for your time and your attention. I truly appreciate it. I hope you're doing well out there, and I hope life is treating you beautifully day or night. And come back again, watch more videos, and let's continue the conversation here. I guess that's all for now. Big love to you all. Take care.